Okay, everybody, welcome back to the Link Podcast with yours truly, Link Brown. Today I have with me Christy Clement. So Christy is an old friend of mine from college, awesome person. I will tell you a little bit about her in just one second. But she is the co-founder of Institute Agility, helping companies implement Agile principles. And we'll talk a little bit about what Agile principles are in the future or in later on the podcast. But right now, I just want to welcome Christy. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Link. I'm super excited to be here.
Cool. Awesome.
And to catch up with you. So
yes, yes, it has been. So Christy and I, we've known each other since 1990, probably 1996, because we both came to college in 1995. We both went to Carnegie Mellon University. Both chemical engineers, but I was late.
Don't forget that.
Don't forget. Excuse me?
Go Tartans.
Go Tartans, yes. As much as that matters to anybody.
Yeah, I don't think most CMUers even know that, right?
Exactly. They forget. But I came into chemical engineering late, so we met probably in 1996. So that's 24 years. But she doesn't look old at all. I do. So no, but we were in the same class, sometimes study partners, sometimes just trying to survive. I know me personally, but I always appreciated, just whether it was kind of studying or just like going through the rigors of Carnegie Mellon together, or even Buggy and seeing you out there in carnival time. Like it was just always a pleasure to be around you. So I'm glad we get a chance to catch up and people get to learn more about you and your journey. And it's pretty interesting. So again, welcome and we're gonna have a good time today.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely.
Cool. So, all right. So, Christy, I know you're from Connecticut originally. Mm-hmm. All right. So tell me a little bit about, I always just want to start with like, tell me about growing up. Like, I grew up in the Midwest, but I don't know what Connecticut living is like. So tell me.
Yeah. I grew up in a really small town, 5,000 people or so. And there were 100 people in my graduating class, and that was a big class. So wow. Pretty small town. Yeah. Actually Old Lyme, Connecticut, which has the distinction of being the genesis for the name Lyme disease. So, we're super excited about that. The lady who discovered Lyme disease is from our town, and I think she didn't want to name it after, her last name. So in fact, it got named after our town. But let's see, what was it like? It felt very safe and secure. And as soon as I turned 17 and graduated from college, I was like, get me out of here kind of thing. It was a great place to grow up, but I knew that I wanted to do different stuff. And yeah, I don't know what else to say about it. It was on the water. So I grew up sailing, and that is a passion that has taken me to some cool places too. So that's been fun. And yeah, it was, I loved it. It was a wonderful place to grow up. Mm-hmm. And I love to go back and visit, but it's one of those places that but I don't ever need to live there again, I guess.
Yeah, I got you. You still have family there, I would assume?
I did, but my parents moved a few years ago down to Maryland to be closer to the grandkids. Okay. So no family there any longer, but still some friends from high school and stuff. So.
Gotcha. And now you're out on the West Coast.
I am. I'm just outside of Seattle.
Okay. All right. So we'll get into that, because that might take you down into the Pacific Ocean a little bit later. All right. So you choose to go to Carnegie Mellon University. Why chemical engineering for you?
So my original plan, I chose CMU because I wanted a really good engineering school. Mm-hmm. And because I grew up with 3 or 4 generations of engineers on my father's side, all went to University of Michigan. That was my plan. And then I got onto University of Michigan's campus and I was like, no, too big. I can't handle it. And Carnegie Mellon was just it was small. It had a great reputation. And I stepped foot on that campus and I was like, this is the one. But I didn't know what kind of engineer I really wanted to be. I was pretty focused on environmental. Okay. And at CMU, if you went into an engineering track, you had to do 2 types of intro classes.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started off doing civil and environmental, and that was cool. But when I took my chemical intro class, it just clicked for me. And I always, I don't know, still to this day, I don't know why they pair environmental with civil engineering. I think it's silly. It seems like a better pairing would be with chemical. And I love chemistry. And Dr. Gary Powers, I don't know if you remember him, but he was my intro professor, was just so passionate. And yeah, it was just fun to be in class with him. I was like, yeah. And I think that's part of why I decided on chemical, because he was just like such a great guy and he loved this stuff so much. You know?
That's interesting, because I actually got admitted into chemistry, wanted to be in chemical engineering, but didn't get into the engineering school. And I don't know the name of the guy. He was Asian, old guy.
Young John.
What was his name?
Young John.
Yeah. Yeah, he was just totally weird, and I didn't understand most of anything, but I passed. And I went, okay, I got in. Like, so I was happy to do that. So your parents are still married, were married. How many siblings do you have?
I have 2 younger sisters.
2 younger sisters. All right. So you're the oldest. You're going to Carnegie. So what was it like stepping onto campus?
Yeah, it's interesting. Even before I got to campus, I remember like Carnegie Mellon was far enough away from Connecticut that like nobody from my high school went there. And I remember being so excited that like, okay, I'm going to the school. I'm going to be the only one from my school. So from my high school. And so I can change anything about myself that I want to, because nobody's going to know me there. And then it turns out that one other girl from my high school class also got in and went to CMU. This girl, Jennifer Lewis. And I like freaked out, like I can't change my personality now because somebody else might know me there. Not that we ever saw each other, but and not that I changed anything about myself, but I remember that like, God, I got really angry that I couldn't just like change my world. But afterwards realizing I can change anything about myself at any time and it's fine. And, you know, so like, yeah. And then stepping foot on campus and, what did it feel like? Oh gosh, this is so long ago, Link.
I know. I'm trying to take you down memory lane.
I know. I think just a lot of excitement around kind of finally being here, and I'd looked forward to it for so long. And I think part of what I felt was kind of this instant connection with some folks in my dorm too, because and I think part of that was like so many people came to CMU that didn't know other people. Like we all came from all over the country. So there weren't pre-established groups of people. Like I think there are at some schools where, you know, they get big groups from one high school all together, and sometimes they often still stay friends. And so everybody's kind of there on their own. And I remember bonding with you know the girls on my floor and just being general goofballs about I don't know, random stuff. It felt very comfortable. I remember walking into each other's, you know, dorm rooms very easily, and you know we always kept them open, and it felt kind of family-ish.
Gotcha. So what did you want to change about yourself when you went to college?
I don't even know. I just wanted the option to change something. Like if I wanted to. I don't think I had a plan. I think I just, you know, well, I could if I wanted to. I could become a goth person if I wanted to, or I could become, you know, a preppy person or something, but then didn't change anything. I am who I am.
You are who you are. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Yeah. I always felt like my purpose in I was going away to college as well, because I'm from Cincinnati.
Yeah.
So probably about the same drive distance, but from Old Lyme. But I went to college thinking I want to be a different person. In fact, my academic advisor said, "What's your goal?" And everybody else said, "Oh, I want to get a 3.5. I want to do this and that." Yeah. And I just said, I want to be a better person when I leave than when I came in. Because I was like, I felt like I was a mess, and like I was trying to be something that I wasn't in high school, and I felt like I couldn't be. So I felt like for me, like college was like no one would actually know me,
Yeah.
and I could just be, I could create whatever I wanted to in my life. So interesting. Yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
know, like,
So what
but I
did you
think you're right.
change?
Huh?
So what did you change?
What did, oh, that's a good question. Uh, hmm. I actually think I changed. Okay, not to give it. I want to give a real answer here. Um, so I would say that I changed my uh, my vision of what's possible.
Mm.
Me, I grew up as I grew up lower middle class, um, and and I was just okay with doing better than my parents did.
Mm.
Um, that was, and I realized, like, because I came in and I was going, I actually almost kind of felt inferior in many ways. Like, Carnegie Mellon's the only school I applied to. Only school.
Bold move.
Yeah, I was cocky, but then I thought back on it and I was like, that was stupid. And so so I was extremely like cocky from that standpoint, but I got in and I was just like super scared um that I didn't measure up.
Mm.
um I looked at every statistic and said, wait, I'm not good enough to be here. But then I just very quickly said, but I'm here.
Yeah.
But I'm here. And if I think about it, like, I had led lots of organizations in high school. I had started things. I had done all these different things. So I said, I can make it. And so that I changed my outlook on what I could do. I think I became a more empathetic person. I had my daughter my freshman year of high school, or freshman year of college. So
Mm.
like I had to grow up a lot,
Yeah.
and realize that everything couldn't be my way. And you know, learn to be responsible, learn to um yeah, to not just yeah, take things for granted. And
Yeah.
then I would say um that I just learned to be more authentic
Mm.
in everything. And sometimes that came across as being rude to a lot of people, because I probably was, because I had to transition from being a complete ass in high school to being a person that people actually wanted to spend time with. But I
Okay.
would say for me, like, I changed a lot, and that was a really eye-opening experience for me, is to realize, like, I could be authentic, I could be fully myself, but I didn't have to create an image for myself. My image was just going to be me.
Yeah.
And that served me pretty well.
That's awesome. I
So
love
I would
that.
say I learned those things. So thanks for interviewing me. I appreciate that. All right. But anyway, so yeah, so all right. So Carnegie Mellon, so you're in Carnegie Mellon, we graduate in 1999. Did you go right, where did you go to right from there? You went to
I moved to
GE?
Cleveland,
Okay. Oh,
um,
I'm sorry.
and started working for General Electric.
Mm-hmm.
I was at one of the lighting plants. So I was a light bulb engineer, basically.
Mm.
Yeah, exciting times.
Exciting. Yes.
Um, but you know what? It was super fun. But I also, not but, I went there specifically because I thought, oh, huge company. If I decide I want to do something else, I'm realizing this is a recurring theme in
Yeah.
my life, right?
Uh-huh.
But more about, like, if I decide I don't want to be an engineer, then they have marketing groups and they have operations groups and they have pricing and manufacturing and all these things that I could just jump into something else because it's such a big organization. Little did I know at the time that, a huge organization like that sort of expects you to stay in one place, and it's quite hard to move around.
Yeah.
versus, you know, a really small little startup, you kind of have to do a little bit of everything.
Well,
So yeah, it's
I
just.
find it interesting that you went to GE. So you come from a small town with 100 graduates. You realize Michigan's too big and you go to Carnegie Mellon, which is 5,000 undergrad.
Yep.
And then you decide to go to the largest freaking company in the world.
That's true. That's true. I was apparently not afraid of that anymore.
Yeah, I'm like, okay.
And it really, like, the big driver for me was, well, it's such a big company that I'll be able to do whatever I want.
Yeah.
And without realizing how big companies worked.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Okay. And how long were you there for?
I was there for 5 years. I moved around, still within like the Cleveland area, but I went from working at the plant. I worked there for a couple of years and was around hot mercury a lot. And I decided that was probably not super healthy for me.
Probably.
So moved up to headquarters and did some design engineering. And then the pivot point for me was actually becoming a Six Sigma black belt. And going through that training. Somehow I got out of CMU without taking a stats class. I'm not sure how that happened, but I actually, I got to focus on stats going through the Six Sigma program at GE, which was fascinating to me and I loved it. And then ended up doing some projects that had some software components to that. So that sort of catapulted me into my next.
Okay. So you decide, so we talk about inflection points. So you were working at GE 5 years, you're Six Sigma, and in Six Sigma, I actually wanted to do it, but never got around. Actually, no, I wanted to do it, but then I got the bug to go into sales, but that's a different story. So I know, like, but every Six Sigma black belt, I know, like, there's some serious, really analytical skills that come out of that. That it's pretty impressive. But then you decide to quit.
Correct.
And do what?
So the timing of the quitting was so GE paid for us to go to grad school. Okay. And I started off in environmental engineering, and I remember seeing a board full of differential equations in my first or second semester of doing that, and thinking, all of my friends are doing their MBA and their hardest class is finance. What the hell am I doing here? And so I switched and did my MBA. And I was becoming more and more miserable at GE. I didn't like who I was working for. I was just wasn't working in a place that was fostering my growth. So I wanted to finish my MBA. And fortunately, GE did not require you to stay after paying for grad school. And so literally on the day that I got my last reimbursement check, I handed in my resignation.
Oh, damn.
And I was always mad at people for stopping work on a Friday at one job and starting work the next Monday and not taking any time off. So I decided I'm really going to focus on what that time off is going to look like. I had $12,000 in the bank and I figured I could do a round the world trip for that. So that's what I did. So I did 6 months around the world.
6 months around the world. Okay. So where did you, like, what would be like the highlight places that you went to during that time?
So I did 2 months in Europe, bouncing around Ireland and Italy and Germany for the most part. And then I did 2 months in Southeast Asia. I did a month in Thailand volunteering and like teaching English at a high school in rural Thailand, which was fun, and up to Laos and down to Singapore and over to India. And then I did a month in Australia and then a month in New Zealand. Okay. And by the end, I had $0.
I really appreciate people who are able to do that, or not able. Everyone's able. Or no, I shouldn't say everyone. Many people are able. I'll tell you, like I said, when I graduated from school, from then on, it was, I need to make some money. period. Like I would, like in my mind, I couldn't even think, take 6 months and go around the world.
Yeah.
I was talking to a friend of mine. We did a podcast, Brandon. We did one, and he did a semester at sea, and I said, "Wow, like it's the one regret I have is again, I don't have really regrets, but I said if I were to replay something, it would be taking that time to do that." What did you find about yourself in those 6 months, since you got some time to take off?
The biggest thing, I remember having this realization um, in my first month, actually, that I don't want children.
Mm.
And I had always just grown up, yeah, like most people I do, I think, thinking, oh, when I have kids, blah, blah, blah. It's just kind of what you do. Everybody is a child of somebody, right? And so I think there's this sort of built-in expectation so many times. And I remember journaling and thinking about, okay, if I really want children, I should have a good reason to have them. And frankly, I think people who say I really, really want them is a good enough reason. But I've never felt that. And I just couldn't come up with a good reason. I was like, oh, okay, I guess I don't want children. And that's okay. And that was probably the biggest aha that I had on that trip.
Was that like one of your pressing things that you were like, that was like a big concern at the time or something? I'm like, how does that even come up in your reflections?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think, I dated people kind of on and off, and nothing had gotten so serious, but we would, occasionally I would talk with guys that I was with about like, if we stay together and when we have kids. And there must have been something uncomfortable in my gut around that sort of that I took with me. And, having that time really allowed me just kind of to think through that stuff and form. It's sort of that, I think that was probably my most formative time of just, seeing the world and how I want to interact with it and who am I. As much as I think a lot of people do that much earlier on than I did in college, for example, or like, in their early 20s, but it was not until I was kind of 26 and like, or however old I was at the time.
Yeah, but I think everybody does that. I mean, I think, well, surely in college, there's a time where you think about who you are.
Yeah.
But isn't it at every like life-changing moment, inflection point, right? That we get to a point where we just like, when you slow down enough, you start to think about your priorities, what's important to you. And again, and who am I, right? Like, and I kind of feel like the people who don't take time every so often to figure out who they are, like kind of stay stagnant, and then they turn 60 and they retire, and then they're like, well, what the hell am I going to do with my life? Because they haven't evolved at all. They've only tried to maintain this certain status or certain stature, to the rest of the world. So
yeah, and I think some of it is just the rat race that you're in, because I think you made a really good point that it's at least for me, it's that luxury of slowing down a little bit and having some solitude to really think that stuff through. But if I'm at work 40 hours a week and, and going off and playing on the weekends, I don't necessarily give myself a lot of that time.
Yeah.
Or I didn't find it certainly early on.
Yeah.
And so having that time to just kind of explore and think and really reflect allowed me to kind of make that leap and make that realization about myself.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Again, everybody has to make their own choice, right? So
yeah,
it's a cool thing. And what you really wouldn't want, at least what I wouldn't want in my life, is like that I'm making decisions to please other people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's like, because society said you should do this, or because
that's the expectation,
right? Yeah. So interesting. Okay, so you come back. So did you learn anything else on your trip? You learn another language?
Well, I learned a little bit of Thai when I was there. I don't like Sawati Kap is probably the extent of what I remember.
Oh, wow, that's impressive.
And what else did I learn? I learned how much we are similar
Yeah.
throughout the entire world, just people are people. Everybody just wants to be happy and like contribute and find some passion, whether you're, in a hill tribe in Laos, or if you're working a corporate job, in Europe somewhere.
Did you not think that before?
I'm not sure that I ever really thought to stop and think about it, It just, like, if nothing else, maybe I knew that, but it just, you get it confirmed,
Yeah.
And I think, like, another surprising thing that I remember learning, especially because I was going to this volunteer organization in Thailand to teach English at a high school. And I thought, oh God, what am I doing? High school kids are jerks, right? Like, that's a bad idea. They, basically I'm going to be a substitute teacher from another country. Like,
Right.
they're not going to be nice to me. Well, it turns out Thai kids are like the sweetest people in the world. It's American high schoolers who are
Okay.
So I think there are some differences there, but we all still want the same stuff. And I don't know, did I know that before? I probably did. We had lots of exchange students growing up. So,
Okay.
Despite the fact that like we lived in a pretty isolated community, this is my mother's way of bringing the world to us.
Mm-hmm.
So we had 13 exchange students from all over the world.
Oh, wow.
From Nigeria, from Germany, from South Africa, from Singapore, like all over the place. And so I think I probably did know a lot of that stuff, but it's a different experience when you're actually kind of living in a community somewhere else.
I have to say, so the reason why I asked you the question is because as we're talking, I said, okay, one other thing I really loved about Christy, I said, it was never difficult. Okay, so we had 50 people in our chemical engineering class?
Probably about that, yeah.
And if I'm fully transparent, I will just say, I didn't always feel welcome in chemical engineering class, and it for whatever reason, and like, but also I never really tried to integrate and again, part of it is when you feel like you're not supposed to be there or something, like you kind of go into something differently. But I would go, you know what? You were one of the people that I go was just really like this welcoming, like, people are people, it's just like easy to say, oh, I can use Christy as our I can steal my notes from Christy, or I can,
or Christy can steal Link's notes.
Yeah, we'll survive this. And like, right. Like, yeah. So I just felt like, I always went, I always felt that you were just open to anybody, like naturally, like your spirit is one that's just naturally open to other people. And so I would go, I can definitely see how it was more confirmed for you more than necessarily a realization, because, and then I think your parents, like, now that you say that your parents, like, you had 13 exchange students, and I go, that kind of makes sense. Even though you're from a small town, you just, you see everything, right? I say the same about myself, even though, I as sometimes difficult as our circumstances were, I go, my parents always showed us different things. I always had friends from different parts of the world. I went to bilingual school. I spoke French half of my day. Like, I was always exposed to something outside. So when it came to do something global, it wasn't difficult. It wasn't like I was only used to eating McDonald's and hot dogs, right? Like our parents kind of put something in us subconsciously to help us like realize that the world was more similar than we were different.
Yeah, so, that's a really good point.
Kudos to your parents, by the way.
Oh, and yours.
No, seriously, kudos. All right, so you come off of your trip and you're like, after 6 months, did you work somewhere else? Like, what did you decide to do after that? What came to you in terms of, since you were out of money, out of your
Yeah.
12,000?
So I moved home with my parents.
Okay.
I think that's one thing when I look back, is that I really had a lot of luxury because I always had the parental safety net,
Mm-hmm.
and so I could do things like that and run out of money and know that I could move home.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that opened up my risk tolerance a lot.
Okay.
I think about how I can provide that safety net for other people so that they can do something similar. So I have thoughts in my head of what that might look like in the future. But anyway, so I moved home with my parents as an adult, which was so interesting to do, to get to know my parents as adults instead of just, as parents. And I really enjoyed that time. So I was probably home for, I don't know, 3 or 4 months, and just kind of looking for another job, and kind of did a startup with a friend, which didn't really work out, and that sort of thing. Finally got hired by a guy who, this is goofy, but his name is Dennis, one of my favorite mentors in the world. But I met him at the lobby of the whatever hotel is in the Newark airport for some reason.
Sheridan.
Yeah, okay. Of course you know this.
Yeah. And there are a lot.
So I'm like, our interview is in this hotel lobby, random. But he happened to be flying through or something, and I think I was in New Jersey visiting my boyfriend at the time. And he walks away from that and is like, okay, I want to hire you for this consulting job in Wisconsin at a paper mill. And we were implementing a big ERP system. And he hired me because he knew I was a risk taker, because I went on this backpacking trip, which was such a relief to me, because when I left GE without another job, people did not tell me directly, but told other people about me, like, oh, Christy's an idiot because she's leaving GE without having another job. She's just throwing her career away.
Mm-hmm.
And I, some part of that stuck with me. Like, am I really doing that? Is it going to be a problem when I come back? And it took me a while to realize, like, oh, that's why I don't want to work at a place like this, for people like that, right? In fact, I want to work for the people that look at my resume and say, oh, you went on a 6-month backpacking trip? Cool. I want to hire you. Those are the kinds of people that I want to work for.
Yeah.
So found somebody and that was super excited about that and the risk-taking part of my personality. And so off I went to Wisconsin, and it in what seemed like a super sketchy, I remember my parents being like, is this a real job? Like, you're going to Wisconsin to work for this guy that you met at an airport Sheridan lobby? Like, is this a good idea? But it was one of my favorite jobs in the world. It was super fun. We had a great time. We were just doing this big ERP install at a paper mill. So
interesting. So I want to get to that in just a second, but I wanted to go back to something you said about risk taking, because people have seen me as a risk taker as well, and I just find it interesting. You find that you can be a risk taker because you had the security of your parents.
Yes.
I found I could be a risk taker because I knew what it was to be broke.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay.
And I just said, okay, like, what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
Like there was this thing on the internet. It really kind of pisses me off, actually, but there's this video that goes around, and it talks about like all the advantages that somebody have if they grew up in the suburbs, if they grew up with 2 parents, if they grew up with all these things, and they are advantages in some ways. Mm-hmm. But I also go, no, there's also a lot of advantages to not having, to feeling like you didn't have certain things, like, right? Like, if you can get over what I would call lack mentality, like thinking that, I have to grab and hold on to everything I have. Like, you realize but everyone does this, by the way, whether they're middle class, upper class, or whatever. Like they always hold on. People will hold on to whatever is familiar to them. It's like the people at GE, right? Like they're desperate. Okay, not all people at GE, obviously, but but I'm saying though your old coworkers were basically saying, we're desperate to hold on to this great opportunity that we have, as if it's the only opportunity that's ever going to exist.
Yes.
And you're going, no, I'm secure. Like, I don't want to do this. I know I can go somewhere else, and screw it. I'm going to try something else. So
Yes.
I just think it's interesting, like, just to hear your thought process on how you felt like you could be more of a risk taker. Because I just think it's just interesting to me.
Yeah, it is. That's fascinating to me,
Yeah.
because I've always sort of considered having that safety net is the reason. But to hear you talk about, like, hey, what's the worst that could happen? Like, I've been broke before. If that's the worst, then like I know how to come back from that. It gives you more kind of grit and stick to itiveness, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I think at some point you also said things going on in your head about providing safety net for people. We'll talk about that at some other point, but because I have a feeling it can be a longer discussion, but it would be interesting to see, because I definitely love the idea of helping people and giving them a hand up and helping them, like, really be able to start grabbing hold of their dreams. Um, uh, it can manifest itself in lots of ways, but again, love to talk about it a little bit more, but we'll get into it another time. All right, so so you go and work for this guy in Wisconsin. Now, when did you decide to go live abroad? Was that during your backpacking trip, or was that a different time? I know you lived
It's
in.
always been on my bucket list of, like, I always wanted to live in another country. But it wasn't until actually it was just 3 years ago that we actually, went to Australia.
Oh, you lived in Australia then. Okay, because I remember, it was a while ago. I guess it was maybe 10 years ago. Like, we were chatting on, maybe it was on Facebook or LinkedIn, I'm not sure, but you said, oh yeah, we're gonna go get on a boat and travel around the world. And I was like, huh? It's like, okay, how does this come about? What made you do that?
So when the job was over, it was a contract job in Wisconsin. When that was over, I had always wanted to live on the West Coast, and so I packed up my car and did another sort of mini. I call them mini retirements, like my backpacking trip. I did a 3-month road trip out to Seattle, and when I made it out to Seattle, I'd never been to Seattle before. I just kind of, people had told me, like, this might be a place that you're interested in. And met my husband, I don't know, 2 months after I moved here or something like that. And at the time, he was thinking about, he never finished his bachelor's degree. He was thinking about quitting his job, going back to school, and living on a boat, because it would be a cheap way to do that. And I had always grown up sailing, had been interested in boats and maybe living on a boat. And within a year of us being together, we had bought a boat, moved onto the boat, and we had plans. So the question was, how did that come about? This is a good story, actually. We had both super bad days at work one day, like 2 or 3 months into dating. And he came home with flowers and a laminated map of the world and whiteboard markers. And I brought gin and tonic. And we got pretty drunk, and we just wrote on the laminated map of the world in whiteboard markers where we might go sailing. And we just were circling like entire continents, like Australia. Oh yeah, let's go around there. That sounds good. New Zealand, let's circumnavigate New Zealand. And it was just like a blowing off steam kind of night. But we woke up the next morning slightly hungover, and we were like, that would be really fun. We should do that. And not too long after that, he was gonna quit his job to go back to school. And he called me right before he was meant to meet with his boss and said, like, are we really gonna do this? Should I maybe not quit my job? so we can actually save money to buy a boat and go do this. And I was like, yeah, let's do this. And so it became like, it started out as a goofy blow off steam kind of night, and turned into, no, let's go sail for a while.
And so you live on a boat. Now, where did you go sailing?
So at first it was just like fix up the boat and save more money. So we did that for about a year. And then we left, we went around Vancouver Island for a summer. So out on the West Coast. And then we took, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 months to go down the West Coast of the US. And then we spent 7-ish months in the Sea of Cortez in Mexico before we ran out of money and had to come back to work.
Is boat living that much cheaper than
if you are off the dock? Yes. When we were in Mexico, for example, our yearly, like what it would take to live in Mexico, the way that we were living, so pretty cheaply, not going to docks and stuff like that, probably $20,000 a year.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, pretty cheap.
That's not bad.
Yeah. And you can do it for, people do it for cheaper, but that was like for what we wanted out of it, that worked.
Yeah. Okay. And docking would probably double your cost, I would assume, or.
Yeah. It depends on where you're doing
it. Obviously, but
yes.
That's not bad.
I know, right? Sailing, people, it's so
as long as you don't get seasick.
I do.
Okay.
But only on the big like ocean passages. So most of the time you're at anchor and you're like, we call it fixing your boat in exotic places, right? Like, because it's always breaking. You're always having to deal with plumbing issues or electrical issues or diesel issues or something like that. But so it was less about, I could get over the seasickness. It was more about like, this is just a cool way to travel and like get to know people. And the community is really tight, which I love.
Yeah.
Boating community.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you're really dependent on each other. When you're out sailing and you are 70 miles off the coast of the US or Mexico or wherever else in the world, there's no plumber to call. If your engine breaks, you're fixing it yourself with the spares that you've got on the boat, or you're hailing some other vessel to say, do you guys have, something that we might need, right? So you're very self-sufficient yourself, but like when you're in a place like Mexico or somewhere else, it's just a very kind of giving kind of community. If somebody needs a spare part that you have, here, we don't need it right now. Like that's gonna.
Was it international or more a lot of US people?
In Mexico, it was mostly Americans. Around the rest of the world, I have lots of friends in like the South Pacific. There tends to be much more international feel in a lot of places.
Interesting. Okay. I get seasick. I couldn't imagine staying someplace where I get seasick. I think I'm an adventurous guy, maybe not that adventurous though. So, but okay. So you lived on a boat, I think you told me for 8 years?
8 years, yeah.
What made you get off?
Oh, you know what? So one of the things that I really learned about myself when we were sailing was how much I had a passion for kind of creating things from scratch. So, I would, make sourdough bread, or I would grow sprouts, and that sort of translated when we got back from Mexico, and we were still living on the boat, but working, and we had a dog. And so I thought, I'll try my hand at gardening, because that feels like something that I would like. And so I did that in the parking lot of the marina, literally, like we had a little pea patch. And I loved it. And we had always talked about building a house, and it just became this new dream of ours to go buy some land and build a house and have a big garden and be a little bit more self-sufficient. And it felt like it was kind of a natural conclusion for us on the boat. Like, yeah, we did some, we did a lot of what we wanted to do, and we were just kind of on to the next thing. And that's how we've always operated.
It's interesting because one of the things you had written is that like sometimes you feel like things don't come together or it just kind of happen happenstance that things happen for you. But as I'm listening to you, even I'm going, wait, I see a lot of you have a goal and then you bake a new goal. Like you go, and it seems like you and your husband do a good job of like dreaming together, right? Of just saying, okay, yeah, we want to do this. Oh, let's do it. And then it is really something that's may not be well defined as you might learn in an engineering class, but at least the vision of the system that you want, you know what you're putting in and you know what you're trying to get out, right? Yeah. So like those things actually already do exist.
Yeah, that's true. I consider ourselves to be very much like project people and not like I need the change, I think. Mm-hmm. So, we've built this house and we're still working on the house. I wouldn't call it done by any means. And like our next passion is truck camping. And so we've built a platform in the back of the truck and we go off for, sometimes it's a weekend, sometimes it's 3 months at a time to just like go explore national parks and go, see the US. I call it land yachting, and you don't get seasick. So there you go. Like, there's your thing.
I could do that. And I like to drive, so that could work too. Okay.
Yeah, and we go off-roading and explore, because out here there's so many logging roads and there's just so much national forest and just BLM land and national parks and all that kind of stuff. So it's like there's so much to explore out here. It's really it's fun.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. So is that what made you guys start a business, or how did that did that come on the boat, or did that come
what's that?
Did that come on the boat, or was that like
no,
how did that dream come about?
We never would have started the business had the organization that we were working for got bought out a couple of times, ending with Accenture. So we started with it was like the company that we had been working with was 20 people probably, got bought out, became 200 people, and got bought out again, became 300,000 people. And I had had enough experience working for big companies, a la GE, that I was like, I'm not super excited about it, but I'll give it a try. And so we were there for about a year and a half. And that's part of the move to Australia was like, okay, we'll stick around for that sort of thing. That's fun. But we got to a point where it was clear that for both of us, because we do the same thing, Agile coaching, that this was not the right place for us. We didn't enjoy the work and working with the other people at Accenture. So we just decided, let's try and do this on our own. Cool. It was a good impetus to get out.
And how long ago was that?
That was January 2019.
Oh, okay, cool. So almost 2 years in. Okay. Yeah. So now you guys founded Institute Agility.
Well, we founded Velocity Made Good.
Oh, yes, that's right. Yes. Okay.
And then Institute Agility is another.
Okay. So another dream. Great. Yeah. So tell me about Institute Agility. Tell me about the company. Tell me about what you guys do.
Yeah. So we help organizations to implement Agile and get results from it. So I think there are so many organizations out there that know that there's a better way of creating awesome products. And they're kind of stuck in their old habits. And when I say products, this is primarily around software products. But they're stuck in some old ways of doing things or with some old mentalities, and they're not necessarily getting the results that they want as fast as they want and that sort of thing. And so we help those organizations to, hey, let's think about reorganizing your team so that all the people that you need for this project are together on a team. Let's make sure that your customers are, involved in giving fast feedback to those teams so you're building the right thing. And we help them with, some automation so that they're not having to manually test all the time, that sort of thing. So it's, and then the bigger piece of that is also kind of, we help some of their organizational impediments, as I call them, to just, to work through those so that, lots of teams have to work with a lot of different silos within the organization. So just helping those folks create clear pathways of communication and always be thinking about continuous improvement and baking that into their process and their culture. So,
and your work is more on the human resources side than the operations, like not necessarily manufacturing operations, but more the people side of the business.
Yeah, it is very, very people oriented for sure. It's, we need some tech knowledge to just be able to talk the talk with a lot of the IT folks, especially, and developers and quality assurance folks and business analysts and folks like that. But right, we're not actually running the operations ourselves or building them software. We're really just helping them reorganize and think differently about how they're creating those products and ask some hard questions around like, why do you do it this way? Or why do you do all these handoffs? So that, that's called, anytime you do a big handoff, you've got communication breakdowns and you've got, quality issues and things like that. And so finding ways to get things to flow through their system.
Interesting. So, and what is Agile, just so people are familiar, so they can understand it?
Yeah, it's a set of principles and like really a philosophy on how to create better products. So it's all about, really focus on the people and not on the process as much. Focus on the software, the product that you're working on, and not on the documentation. And just kind of recognize that like, hey, we need people to build this stuff, whatever products that we're building. And so it's very much around continuous improvement all the time, always thinking about how can we get better. Very much based on lean principles, if your listeners have heard that.
Yep. Okay. Well, I don't know if they have, but hopefully they have. So I have. So, and so what would you say was one of your, I don't know, most rewarding experiences working here so far, like working with your customers so far?
Cool. You know what? The most rewarding stuff that I tend to go back to are like the people. There have been a few people out of the 10 years that I've been doing this now, more than that, probably 11, that I still keep in touch with from, years and years ago that say to me regularly, like, this changed my life, that, and like, now I'm starting to tear up because it makes me like so emotional and happy. But just, yeah, there are a few people that really like, they've kind of gone into this line of work as well, because they see that not only do we help organizations to make their software delivery engines better, but we help them create more engagement in the folks that work there. And it just, like, to me, happier people make better products. And so if we can help folks be more engaged because, they're talking to their customers more and they have a sense of who's actually using these products that they're making, right? They're getting feedback from them. They have more support from leadership. If we do it well, then those teams are a lot more engaged and people are happier at work. And that is my main mission.
Yeah. I can see, as you're telling me about, this is why I love doing these podcasts, because I see your work today, like really being like a continuum of everything, like of your life in general. I'm like, oh man, you're working with people. You're a great people person. You're accepting of everybody. It's like, that's great. You love projects and which is awesome. You're not afraid to take risks and say things that might be a little ask a question that is uncomfortable for an organization in order to change. I go, wow, okay. And then you're a chemical engineer, which most people don't understand, that the way we think and learn to think, at least, is really systems based, right? Like it's really understanding like a global look at things instead of being so detailed that we we look at everything as a system.
Totally.
And once I actually realized that, I thought that helped me as well. But I can see how you're really great at this. So it's like, this really makes a lot of sense. It really makes a lot of sense that you're doing it and that you're great at it and that it brings you joy and passion to do it.
Sure.
So
you put it very eloquently. And I've never really thought about all of those kind of qualities. I feel like, yes, this is something that I'm good at and I love.
yeah.
But yeah, this has been a good way to kind of look at the big picture and have more understanding why.
What's next on the horizon for you?
So what is next? So we will, COVID has complicated the heck out of things.
Oh,
so
yeah.
who knows, really? But I think it's really growing Institute Agility because I am extremely passionate about this company becoming a bit of a family. And I just, having worked in organizations where it feels like family and community, I'm really looking forward to building that as we grow. And what else is next? We will certainly travel, depending on when we can kind of start flying again. But in the meantime, it has been fun to just to go off and go truck camping. We're talking about doing a road trip this winter out to the East Coast, just because I've not been able to see my family in like nearly a year and that sort of thing. So, so from a sort of immediate perspective, I think that'll be some of the big stuff. And then eventually we will likely get another boat as well and explore up north. Is really that's our favorite part of the places that we were sailing, is up in like northern British Columbia and Alaska. Beautiful and isolated and just very relaxing.
Cool.
Yeah.
Great. Help you reflect and figure out what's the next
exactly.
The next part.
Yeah, and that sort of pattern that we've had of these mini retirements, my backpacking trip or the road trip out to Seattle or the few times that we went out sailing. Just I like having that balance of work for part of the year, and then if we can take a month or two off or something like that feels like a good path forward.
Sign me up for that.
I know, right? We just need to make that a standard.
Yes, maybe one day, we'll see. All right. Anyway, so I know we're going to have to wrap it up, but Christy, it's really amazing talking to you. Seriously, we have to talk about your project of helping, provide a platform for people. But
yeah, and I haven't really articulated what that looks like, so maybe we can brainstorm together.
Yeah, it'd be great. Yeah, it'd be great. Again, it's a passion of mine, so I'd love to. I do the podcast because I want people to believe in themselves, right? Like like I said, it's important. No matter where you are, what level you think you're at, you can always believe in yourself more, and you can always realize like there's other people just like you and who are on their journey, and that's all we're all trying to do. So yeah, I'm glad you came. I'm glad you're here. I'm thankful to know you. And I promise it won't be 20 something years before we.
I promise that too. We can both hold each other accountable to that.
Yes, we've run into each other a couple of times on campus, so at least it hasn't been that long.
Yes,
but no, it's really amazing getting to know more about you, and I know a lot of people are going to get a lot out of it too. So
awesome. Well, thanks, Lake. This was super fun, and yeah, let's talk, brainstorm, do all the things, because the more people I can pull into this, I think the more real it becomes.
Cool. Let's do it. All right. Have a good one.
You too. Bye, Link.
Right. Bye. All right, guys. We hope you loved it. Help us spread more global understanding, encouragement, and inspiration. There's 4 things you can do for us. You can comment, subscribe, like, and share. Enjoy the journey.